In a lot of families, conversations about sex go something like this. Good talk. Or if words are exchanged, they're so uncomfortable and so vague that very little gets communicated. This was not the case in my family. In my family, conversations about sex were normal, common, and open. There is no more emblematic example than the famous orgasm talk from my dad. When my brother got his first girlfriend, he got the how to please a woman talk from my dad. My dad got this talk from his father. So when I was 19 and my Catholic mother still had not given me the orgasm talk, my dad decided he was going to recite the latest research literature to me about the female orgasm. I was 19 in my Stanford undergrad dorm room not far from here. The talk went something like this. Jackie, Hollywood makes it look like sex is all about intercourse, but only 15% of women can have an orgasm from intercourse alone. The vast majority of women need clitoral stimulation. Then he said, and it's really important that a woman be pleased first in bed. Why? When a man has an orgasm, it's over. So the woman needs to be pleased first. At the time, I thought my dad was just so quirky. And I'm still the first to admit that he is very quirky. But what I realize now is that there was also so much power and wisdom in what my dad was telling the 19-year-old me. So often in our culture, a woman's sexual well-being is valued less than a man's. We see that not only in relationships oftentimes, but also in our broader business systems. You may have heard that this January at CES, the largest consumer electronics trade show, a women's vibrator company got an award, but then had the award rescinded and was not allowed to present at the conference. CES called the product profane and immoral, and yet dedicated an entire room for VR porn for male users, and has prominently featured sex robots and other sexual products geared at men. What I want to show today is that CES was not a one-off issue. Our business practices systematically discriminate against female sexual wellness compared to male sexual wellness. I could give you scores of examples, but I'm going to talk about advertising, financial institutions, and manufacturing. First, advertising. Ride the subway in New York City, and you cannot escape the massive amounts of advertising for erectile dysfunction, also on the radio, TV, and all across ads right now. Hims shows penises to erect cactuses to represent penises, and Roman offers to deliver ED drugs directly to your door. One might wonder, where are the ads for women's sexual wellness products? This advertisement was for a women's sexual wellness company called Unbound. And the same subways in New York City banned these advertisements. They wouldn't post them. Why? They were considered too phallic. Again. Cactuses to represent erect penises, yet the women's sexual wellness company, this was too phallic for the MTA. This is not just the New York subway, and it's not just ED. Facebook, Pinterest, Snapchat, and Instagram have many advertisements not only for erectile dysfunction, but also for penis enlargement pumps, male sexual enhancer gels, Playboy, all kinds of products addressing men's sexual needs, but ban not only female sexual wellness and pleasure companies, but also sex education companies and even products that prevent pain for women during intercourse. Second, financial institutions. Stripe has a policy against working with all sex toys. Stripe itself considers this policy to be outdated and overly moralizing, but the issue is that its partners, banks and credit card companies, will not do business with sex toy companies. They're considered too much of a brand risk. The thing is, sex toys are much more commonly used by women than they are by men. So practices that say no to doing business with these companies disproportionately impact companies that address women's sexual needs. As context, 53% of American women use a vibrator. 40% have used one with a partner. And vibrator usage is associated with better sexual function for women across every measure: arousal, lubrication, desire, lack of pain, and orgasm. But this entire category of product is banned not just from working with payment processors like Stripe, but from opening a bank account if the bank knows what the company does, and from getting loans from the bank. This applies not only to sex toy companies, but again, to sex education sites such as OMGS, which conducted the first large-scale study about female pleasure and was working to educate the mass public about it. Third, manufacturing. An entrepreneur named Melanie Crystal left a partner-track career in law to create a product that was initially intended to address and prevent STI transmission for oral sex on a woman. It got a factory that was really excited to work with it. It was a condom manufacturer. But as soon as the factory realized the product was for oral sex on a woman, it backed out of working with the company and said it was against their shareholder values. Basic steps for businesses like getting a manufacturer, a packaging partner, or product liability insurance are huge barriers still for companies that address female sexual wellness. One result of all of these norms, both in business and in our culture, today, although 95% of men say they have an orgasm always or almost always when they have sex, that figure is only 65% for heterosexual women, which a lot of us still think sounds high. This is not because women are just not orgasmic. Definitely not the case. In fact, lesbian women have orgasms essentially as much as men. And research shows that women who, by themselves, achieve orgasm easily and within minutes. The difference in the gap is because of a lack of understanding about female pleasure, but also a lack of value in our culture of female pleasure compared to male sexual pleasure. We have historical precedents both for female sexual health products being embraced much more slowly than men's products, but also for changing this. When it came to oral contraceptives, the birth control pill, which came out in 1960, for 40 years, this was the only prescription drug that insurance wouldn't cover. Women's groups long fought to change this. Women were paying more in medical bills than men because of this, and they had little real success. What changed this? 1998, Viagra came out. It was covered by half of insurers in the United States quickly. Prescriptions were quickly prescribed, and it was only after Viagra came out that women's groups could effectively argue this was discrimination and successfully got birth control covered. I believe that today we have another landmark opportunity. The Viagra patent is expiring next year. We have more licensing agreements, which is why we're seeing tremendous ED advertisements. I think this is an opportunity to once again point to the double standards and make sure we bring women's health along. And what I ask is, will we use this opportunity to make sure that women's sexual wellness is included, or will we stick with the status quo? At Stanford GSB, at our Graduate School of Business, we talk about changing lives, changing organizations, and changing the world. You may not think that your job or your job after business school has the potential to change sex lives, change organizations, and change the world. But if your job touches on advertising, payments, banking, investing, finance, packaging, manufacturing, insurance, or determining who has a voice at accelerators or at trade shows, let alone if you work in law, the social sector, education, or the public sector, you will actually be in a position to make decisions that impact people, including in the intimate aspects of our lives. When I think about, well, I want to show you a picture of, this is my dad, my sister and I, the day that we moved my younger sister into college, when she was around the age I got the talk I told you about. And when I think about 19-year-old me, and the messages I heard from my dad, they are so different than the inequities that I've experienced and from the realities I talked about today. 19-year-old me heard that my pleasure mattered just as much as any other man's, if not more. 19-year-old me heard that I had agency over my body and that my sexuality was mine. 19-year-old me heard that intimacy could be a rich source of positivity in my life and a source of deep connection with other people. These are the realities I want for all women and for people of all genders, all sexual orientations, and all sexual identities. It is time that women's sexual well-being is valued as much as men's in business and in our culture.